Please help my mama. The bad men are hurting her. A 5-year-old girl, barefoot, bleeding, soaking wet, standing alone in a thunderstorm outside the Hells Angels clubhouse. 40 of the most dangerous men in Sacramento froze when they opened that door. Not because of the storm, because of her eyes. Green, huge, carrying a terror no child should ever know. She was clutching a one-eared stuffed bear like it was the last thing keeping her alive. And inside that bear was a secret that would blow apart the biggest human trafficking ring in California history. What these bikers did next was caught on a stranger's dash cam, went viral with 2 million views, and shocked the entire nation. Before we go any further, tell us in the comments where we're watching from so we can see how far this little girl's story has traveled. Subscribe now and stay until the very end, because the way this ends, nobody saw it coming. Jake Reaper Callahan heard the knocking before anyone else did. 3 soft taps against the heavy oak door. Not a pounding, not a kick. The kind of knock that comes from a hand too small to make much noise. He set his whiskey down and held up one finger. The conversation at the bar died. Hammer stopped mid-sentence. Ghost looked up from his laptop. "You hear that?" Jake said. "Hear what?" The knock came again. 3 taps, barely louder than the rain hammering the roof. Hammer was closest to the door. He looked at Jake. Jake nodded once. The door swung open, and every man in that clubhouse stopped breathing. She was tiny, blonde curls plastered flat against her skull, no shoes. Her feet were raw and bleeding, leaving small red prints on the concrete step. She was shaking so hard her whole body vibrated. Rain poured off her like she'd been walking through it for hours. But it was her eyes that got Jake. Green, enormous, locked onto his with a look that no 5-year-old should ever carry. She opened her mouth. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please help my mama. The bad men are hurting her." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The jukebox kept playing some old country song, but nobody heard it. Jake stood frozen. 42 years of hard living, Folsom Prison, street wars, enemies who'd tried to put him in the ground. None of it, not 1 second of it, had prepared him for this. Because he wasn't seeing her anymore, he was seeing himself. 9 years old, standing in a different doorway, watching his mother's boyfriend slam her head against a kitchen counter, praying that someone, anyone, would come. Nobody came. "Jesus Christ, Reaper," Hammer pushed through the crowd. "What the hell is a kid doing here?" Jake didn't answer. He dropped to one knee, his massive frame folded down until he was eye level with the girl. Up close, he could see bruises on her upper arms, finger-shaped, old ones layered under new ones, a partially healed cut on her lower lip. This child had been hurt before. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma." She hiccuped and wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Emma Sullivan." "Emma, how old are you?" She held up 5 tiny fingers. 5 years old, walking alone, in a thunderstorm, barefoot, at night, to a biker clubhouse. "Where's your mama, Emma?" Her face crumpled. The tears came hard and fast, cutting clean tracks through the dirt on her cheeks. The bad men came. They were yelling at Mama about what she saw. Then they put her in a big black car and drove away. "When did this happen?" "I don't know." Her voice cracked so badly that Jake felt it in his own chest. "It was still light outside. Mama told me to hide under the bed. She said no matter what I heard, don't come out." Emma's whole body shook. But then she screamed, and I looked through the window, and the man with silver teeth had a knife, and Mama was tied to a chair, and he was... She couldn't finish. Jake reached out slowly, gave her time to pull away. She didn't. She leaned into his hand like a child who'd forgotten what safe felt like and was trying to remember. "Reaper." Ghost was at his shoulder, white-faced. "We need to talk, right now." "Not now." "Yes, now." Ghost shoved his phone in front of Jake's face. The screen showed a video, 1.4 million views and climbing. Dash cam footage from a delivery truck. A tiny figure walking down a rain-soaked street, barefoot, clutching a stuffed animal. The caption read, "Anyone know this child? She's been walking alone for 20 minutes, called 911, but no response yet." The comments were exploding. People trying to identify the girl, news accounts sharing the clip, and right there in the background, clear as day, the Hells Angels clubhouse sign. "Everyone knows she's here," Ghost said. His voice was barely steady. "If whoever took her mother is watching..." How long ago was this posted? 51 minutes. 51 minutes. Whoever kidnapped Emma's mother had already seen it. They knew exactly where this child had gone for help. "Lock it down," Jake ordered. "Nobody in or out." Hammer moved toward the door. Jake caught his arm. "Wait." He looked at Emma. She was watching them with eyes that understood far too much. "First, we take care of her." "Reaper, we got bigger." "She is the problem, Hammer, and the solution. She's the only witness, so we take care of her first. Then we figure out who we need to hurt." Megan Hart pushed through the wall of leather-clad men. She'd been in the back when the commotion started. One look at the scene and she knew. "Oh, honey." She knelt beside Jake. Her voice went gentle, the same voice she used at the shelter with women who'd been beaten half to death. "You must be so cold." Emma studied her carefully, the way children study adults when they're trying to figure out if this one will hurt them too. "Are you a bad person?" Emma asked. Megan's heart broke clean in half. "No, baby, I'm not. And neither is this big, scary guy. We're going to help you find your mama." "Promise?" Megan looked at Jake. He gave her the smallest nod. "I promise." Jake extended his hand. "Come on, Emma, let's get you warm." She hesitated. 1 heartbeat, 2. Then she put her tiny hand in his. And something inside Jake Callahan that had been locked shut since he was 9 years old cracked wide open. In the back office, Doc Whitfield examined Emma while Megan wrapped her in a blanket. Doc was careful, gentle, but his face told Jake everything. "She walked here?" Doc asked quietly. 3 miles, in the rain, barefoot." Doc looked at the raw, bleeding soles of her feet. Then he looked at the bruises on her arms, the cut on her lip, the hospital bracelet on her wrist dated 3 weeks ago. "She's been hurt before," Doc said. "These aren't new injuries, Jake. This is ongoing abuse. Someone's been using this child as a punching bag." Jake crouched beside Emma. "Honey, can you tell me about this bracelet?" Emma looked at her wrist like she'd forgotten it was there. "The doctor said I had to wear it so they know how to fix me when the bad men hurt me again." "The bad men hurt you before?" She nodded. Her chin started trembling. "They told Mama if she said anything about what she saw, they would hurt me worse. They showed her pictures of my school. They knew where I played at recess." Jake felt something building inside his chest. Not the old rage, something sharper, colder, more dangerous. "What did your mama see, Emma?" "I don't know exactly. She was crying a lot after. She said she saw something at the hospital, something terrible. And then the bad men started following us." "Your mama works at a hospital?" "She's a nurse. She helps sick people feel better." Emma's face crumpled again. "Please, mister, please find her. She's all I have." Ghost slipped through the door. His expression was grim. The video hit 2 million views. CNN picked it up. News vans are pulling up outside. "What are they saying?" "Half the internet thinks we kidnapped her. The other half thinks we're protecting her. Either way, every camera in Sacramento is pointing at this clubhouse right now." Jake closed his eyes. This was spinning out of control. "What do we do?" Megan asked. "We find who took her mother, and we get Sarah Sullivan back before whoever did this decides Emma's a loose end." "How? We don't even know who we're looking for." Jake turned back to Emma. "Sweetheart, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that?" Emma nodded, solemn, steady, like a soldier reporting for duty. The bad men who took your mama, what did they look like? One of them had pictures all over his arms. Like yours, but different. Snakes and stuff. Tattoos. Good. What else? He had metal teeth. She pointed at her own mouth. Silver, shiny, and he talked funny, not like you. Funny how? Like the people on TV from far away. Different words. Jake's blood went cold. Snake tattoos, silver teeth, Eastern European accent. Ghost. His voice dropped low. Pull everything we have on the Red Viper Syndicate. Ghost's face lost its color. You think it's them? Snake tattoos, silver teeth, foreign accent, and they've been expanding trafficking operations on the West Coast for 6 months. Tell me that doesn't fit. Ghost was already typing. His fingers moved fast, then faster. Then they stopped. Sarah Sullivan, registered nurse, Mercy General Hospital, single mother, no record, no connections. Ghost looked up. Her unit handles trauma cases. 3 weeks ago, Mercy General treated victims from a warehouse raid. Human trafficking. Women from Eastern Europe. The feds kept it quiet, but someone at that hospital saw something. And that someone was Sarah Sullivan. Jake understood the full picture now. Sarah had witnessed something connected to the Red Viper's trafficking operation. They'd spent 3 weeks terrorizing her into silence, using Emma as leverage. And when that didn't work, they grabbed her. How long does she have? Megan asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Ghost wouldn't look at her. Their pattern says 48 hours, long enough to find out what the witness told people. Then, he stopped. Then what? Megan pressed. Then witnesses stop existing. The room went dead quiet. Jake looked at Emma. She'd fallen asleep in the blanket, curled up on the leather couch, her stuffed bear crushed against her chest. Her face was peaceful, the terror temporarily erased by exhaustion and the illusion of safety. She had walked 3 miles through a thunderstorm, at 5 years old, because she believed someone would care enough to help. Something settled inside Jake like concrete hardening. He would die before he let this child down. Call everyone, he said. Every club that owes us, every contact, every brother willing to ride. You're talking about war, Ghost said quietly. I'm talking about saving a woman's life and keeping a promise to her daughter. Hammer let out a long breath. Reaper, this isn't a street fight. The Red Viper has connections to the Russian and Ukrainian mobs. More soldiers, more guns, more money. We can't match that. Then we call the cops? Hammer said nothing. Right, because Sarah Sullivan probably saw something that proves cops are on the take. That's why the syndicate is going this hard. So we call the feds and wait 3 weeks? Sarah Sullivan will be dead in 2 days. Nobody had an answer for that. Jake's burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Callahan. The voice hit him like a bucket of ice water. Cold. Accented. Exactly the way Emma described. We have something you want. I believe you have something we need. If you're talking about Emma Sullivan, she doesn't belong to you. The child is irrelevant. A loose end will tie up eventually, but her mother has information that could be damaging to our operations. I don't negotiate with people who hurt children. A laugh came through the phone. No humor in it, none at all. Everyone negotiates, Mr. Callahan. The question is how much pain comes first. We know the child is with you. We watched her walk to your clubhouse on that charming little video. Very touching, very vulnerable. Jake's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. Here's what I know, Jake said. His voice dropped to something just above a whisper. I know you took a woman from her home in front of her 5-year-old daughter. I know you've been terrorizing that family for weeks. And I know that 1247 Harbor Road has been very busy lately. Silence. Long silence. We have resources you cannot imagine, the voice said finally. Soldiers, weapons, connections. Walk away, return the child to the streets, and perhaps we forget this conversation. And if I don't, then everyone you care about will suffer, starting with that woman who seems so fond of the little girl. Jake looked across the room at Megan. She was watching him. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read his face. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," Jake said. "Threatening me? No, giving me a reason to destroy you." He ended the call. Every man in that room was staring at him. "They're coming," Jake said. "For her, for all of us." Hammer cracked his knuckles. "Then let them come." "It's not that simple. They've got numbers and firepower we can't match head on." "So what do we do?" Before Jake could answer, a small voice came from behind them. "I can help." Emma was standing in the doorway, barefoot, still clutching her bear. Nobody had heard her get up. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I remember things. Mama says I'm good at remembering." She reached into the pocket of her wet dress and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "I drew what I saw before I came here." Jake took the paper. His hands were shaking. A child's drawing, crude lines, but the details were unmistakable. A building with loading docks, a tall fence, and numbers written in large block letters above the entrance. 1,247. "They kept saying this number," Emma said. "The man with silver teeth, on the phone. 1,247, over and over." Ghost typed for 3 seconds. Then his face went dead white. 1,247 Harbor Road, Warehouse District, East Side, listed as abandoned, but satellite imagery shows vehicles coming and going at all hours for the past 4 months. Jake stared at the drawing, a 5-year-old, traumatized, terrified, and she'd still had the presence of mind to gather intelligence that could save her mother's life. "She's smarter than half my crew," Hammer said. "She's braver than all of us." Emma wasn't finished. "Mama hid something," she said, "before the bad men came. She told me it was our secret, our insurance." Every head in the room turned. "Where?" Jake asked. "In Captain." Emma held up the stuffed bear. She put something inside and sewed him back up. She said if anything ever happened, I should give Captain to someone who could help. The silence that followed was electric. Megan took the bear gently, felt along the seams, found the lump, used Jake's knife to cut the stitching. A USB drive fell into her palm. Ghost plugged it in. The files loaded. And every person in that room stopped breathing. Hundreds of documents, hospital security footage showing women being loaded into vans behind Mercy General, financial records, shell companies, wire transfers, photographs of cash exchanges, names and dates going back 3 years, and video. Clear, damning video of a man in a police uniform accepting a briefcase stuffed with cash from a tall figure with silver-capped teeth. "My God," Hammer breathed. "This isn't evidence. This is a nuclear bomb." "She documented everything," Ghost said, scrolling. "Months of surveillance. Sarah Sullivan must have suspected something at the hospital and started building a case on her own." Jake looked at Emma. "Your mama is very brave." "I know," Emma said quietly. "She said someone had to stop the bad men, even if it was scary." Ghost pulled up another file, then another. His face changed, color draining out of it like water from a sink. "Jake," Ghost's voice was strange. "You need to see this." A list of names, police officers, hospital administrators, city officials, all on the Red Viper's payroll, dirty money flowing in every direction. And near the top of the list, a name that made Jake's heart stop beating. Detective Derek Callahan, his brother. "That's not possible," Jake said. His voice sounded hollow, far away, like it belonged to someone else. "When's the last time you talked to Derek?" Ghost asked carefully. Jake couldn't remember. 12 years, maybe more. Jake chose the club. Derek chose the badge. They hadn't spoken since their mother's memorial service. But this, working for traffickers, helping them move women. "There's more," Ghost said. He didn't want to show it, that was clear. but he pulled up the video anyway. Hospital parking garage, night, security camera footage, women being forced into a van, crying, fighting, being shoved inside. And standing to the side, hands in his pockets watching it happen, was Detective Derek Callahan. He wasn't just on the payroll, he was running the operation. The room was so quiet Jake could hear his own heartbeat. "Does this change anything?" Hammer asked. His voice was soft, almost gentle, the way you talk to someone who's just been gut shot. Jake looked at Emma. She was watching him, those green eyes, waiting, trusting. "No," Jake said. "It doesn't change a damn thing." He turned to Ghost. "Make copies of everything. Send it to every federal agency you can think of. FBI, DEA, Homeland Security. Even if we don't make it through tonight, this evidence survives." "Already on it." "Hammer, get the men ready. How many we need?" "All of them, and then some." Jake picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. It rang twice. "Steele." Buck Warren's gravelly voice came through like sandpaper on concrete. "I'm watching the news, Reaper. That really a 5-year-old who walked to your clubhouse?" "Yeah. And you're really about to go to war with the Red Viper over a woman you don't know?" Jake looked at Emma. She'd picked up a crayon from somewhere and was drawing on the back of a napkin. Stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "Yeah," he said, "I am." Steele was quiet for a long moment. "Then the devil's kin ride with you, brother. We'll be there in 6 hours." Before Jake could respond, another call came through. Then another. Then another. Word was spreading through the underground like wildfire. The Hells Angels were going to war, and clubs from across the state were choosing sides. By midnight, representatives from 5 motorcycle clubs had pledged their support. 52 riders ready to fight an international trafficking syndicate, not for money, not for territory, for a 5-year-old girl who'd been brave enough to knock on a stranger's door. Emma tugged on Jake's jacket. He looked down. "You're going to bring my mama home?" Jake knelt, eye level, the same way he'd met her at the front door hours ago. But something had changed between them, something neither fully understood yet. "I'm going to bring your mama home," he said, "and nobody is ever going to hurt either of you again." Emma threw her small arms around his neck, held on with everything she had. "I knew you'd help," she whispered. "I knew it when I saw you." "How did you know?" "Because you have sad eyes, like Mama's, like mine." She pulled back and looked at him with something no 5-year-old should possess: wisdom born from pain. People with sad eyes understand what it's like to need help, and they always help other people. Something broke open inside Jake Callahan's chest, something that had been sealed shut for 33 years. He held that child and let it break. And across the city, in a warehouse on Harbor Road, a woman named Sarah Sullivan sat tied to a chair, blood dripping down her face, praying that her daughter had found what she'd sent her to find. Someone brave enough to keep a promise. Jake didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Derek's face on that surveillance footage. Hands in his pockets, watching women being dragged into a van, doing nothing. His own brother. At 2 in the morning, a scream tore through the clubhouse. Jake was on his feet and moving before his brain caught up. He hit the safe room door with his shoulder and found Megan already holding Emma, trying to calm the thrashing child. "Mama! Don't hurt Mama! Stop hurting her!" "Emma, wake up! You're safe! You're safe, honey!" The little girl's eyes snapped open, wild, terrified. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Her gaze swept the room in panic until it landed on Jake standing in the doorway. And something in her face changed. The panic didn't disappear, but it moved aside, made room for something else. Recognition, relief. "He was cutting her," Emma whispered. "The man with silver teeth. He was hurting Mama and she was screaming and I couldn't help her. I couldn't do anything." Jake crossed the room and knelt beside the cot. "It was a bad dream, sweetheart. Just a bad dream." "No." Emma grabbed his hand so hard her fingernails dug into his skin. It's not a dream. I saw it. Before they took her. Through the window, he had a knife, and Mama was tied to a chair, and he kept asking her the same thing over and over. Jake's gut clenched. What was he asking? Where are the copies? He said it again and again. Where are the copies? And Mama kept telling him there weren't any copies, but he didn't believe her. He didn't stop. Jake and Megan locked eyes over Emma's head. This child hadn't just heard her mother being taken. She'd watched her mother being tortured through a window. Anything else, Emma? Anything at all? He said a name, on the phone, after he hurt Mama. Emma's face scrunched up, trying to remember. He called someone and said the nurse won't talk. He said we need the brother. The brother will know what to do. The brother. Jake felt the floor tilt under him. You're sure he said that? The brother? I'm sure. He said the brother has been handling problems for 3 years. He'll handle this one too. Ghost appeared at the door. His face confirmed what Jake already knew. We need to talk, Ghost said. Jake squeezed Emma's hand. Megan's going to stay with you. I'll be right back. Promise? Promise. In the main room, Ghost had pulled up new intercepts on his laptop. I've been monitoring Syndicate communications all night. They're not just looking for Sarah's testimony, they're looking for copies of the evidence she gathered. Emma said the same thing. The man with silver teeth kept asking Sarah about copies. Which means the USB drive we found is the original. If they find out we have it, they'll move up whatever timeline they're working on. Ghost nodded. But that's not the worst part. He turned the laptop toward Jake. I ran voice analysis on the phone call you received, compared it against law enforcement databases. The man who called you is Nikolai Petrov. They call him the dentist. Why? Silver-capped teeth, and because of what he does to people who won't answer his questions. Ghost pulled up a file. Ukrainian, former military intelligence. He's the Red Viper's cleanup specialist. When witnesses need to disappear, Petrov makes it happen. How fast? His record is 12 hours, average is 36. Jake, Sarah Sullivan has been in his hands for almost 8 hours already. The math was brutal. If Petrov followed his usual pattern, Sarah had maybe 28 hours left. Maybe less now that the Syndicate knew Emma had walked to the Hells Angels. There's something else, Ghost said. He hesitated. That hesitation scared Jake more than anything. Say it. I dug deeper into Derek's involvement, financial records, phone logs. It's not what we thought. Ghost took a breath. Derek isn't just taking money from them. He's been running their witness elimination program. Every trafficking witness who's disappeared in Sacramento County over the past 3 years, your brother signed off on it. He used his position in homicide to make sure the cases went cold. Jake said nothing. He couldn't. The words hit him like rounds from a gun he couldn't see. How many? Jake finally asked. 7 confirmed, probably more. 7 people. 7 witnesses who tried to do the right thing, dead because Jake's brother had sold his badge to monsters. Does he know about Emma? Ghost's silence was the answer. Ghost, does Derek know this little girl walked to my clubhouse? He's a homicide detective with access to every police scanner and newsfeed in the city. The viral video has been playing on every channel for hours. Yeah, Jake, he knows. Which meant the Red Viper knew everything Derek knew. Sarah Sullivan's location, Emma's location, and now the fact that the Hells Angels were mobilizing. Jake's phone rang. Unknown number, different from before. He answered. Little brother. Derek's voice, calm, controlled. The same voice that used to read Jake bedtime stories when they were kids. We need to talk. Do we? I know what you found on that drive. I know what you're planning. And I know you're going to get yourself killed. Is that concern I'm hearing, Derek? From the man who helps traffickers murder witnesses? Silence. Long enough that Jake thought the call had dropped. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Derek said. The Red Viper isn't some street gang you can intimidate. They have people everywhere. Police, judges, politicians. You go after them, they won't just kill you, they'll kill everyone around you. That woman you're sleeping with, those bikers you call brothers, and that little girl. Say her name. What? Say her name, Derek. She's 5 years old and she walked 3 miles through a storm because men you work for kidnapped her mother. Say her name. Another silence. Emma, Derek said quietly. Her name is Emma. And her mother is Sarah Sullivan. And right now, a man named Nikolai Petrov is torturing her in a warehouse that you helped set up. So don't call me and pretend you give a damn about who lives and dies. Jake, listen to me. I'm trying to what? Save yourself? Cover your tracks? Trying to save you, Derek's voice cracked. Just barely. Just enough. I've done terrible things, I know that. But I didn't call to defend myself. I called because Petrov is planning something you don't see coming. Jake gripped the phone tighter. What? The warehouse at 1247 Harbor Road. It's a trap. They know you have the address. They're expecting you. How do you know? Because I'm the one who told them you'd come. The words landed like a blade between Jake's ribs. 3 hours ago, Derek continued, before I saw the video, before I knew about the girl, Petrov called me and asked what you'd do if a child showed up at your door asking for help. I told him exactly what you'd do. I told him you'd come for the mother. And he smiled, Jake. He smiled and said, good. Jake couldn't speak. His own brother had given the syndicate his playbook. They've reinforced the warehouse, double the guards, surveillance on every approach, and they've moved Sarah to a secondary location as bait. If you hit 1247, you'll walk into a kill box, and Sarah Sullivan dies anyway because she won't be there. Why are you telling me this? Because I watched that video, Jake. I watched that little girl walking in the rain, barefoot, 5 years old, and I thought about my own daughter, about what kind of man I've become. And I couldn't, Derek's voice broke completely, I couldn't let them use me to get her killed. Where is Sarah? I don't know. They moved her 2 hours ago and didn't tell me where. Petrov doesn't trust me anymore. He knows something's wrong. Then you're useless. No, I'm not. Because I know something Petrov doesn't know I know. Derek took a breath. There's a second operation. Pier 9, shipping containers, women, children, scheduled for transport in 48 hours. That's where Petrov's real money is. That's what he's protecting. The warehouse is a distraction. The port is the prize. Jake processed this. If Derek was telling the truth, hitting the warehouse wouldn't just be dangerous, it would be pointless. Why should I believe anything you say? You shouldn't. I've given you every reason not to. But ask yourself this, Jake. If I wanted you dead, why would I call? I could have let you walk into that warehouse blind. Petrov would have handled the rest. Jake hated that it made sense. If you're lying, then you'll kill me. I know. I've made my peace with that. A pause. There's one more thing. Petrov's phone, the one he used to call you. It has a GPS tracker I installed 6 months ago as insurance. I can send you the signal. Wherever that phone goes, Petrov goes. And wherever Petrov goes, Sarah Sullivan is close. Yes, Jake looked at Ghost, who had been listening through a signal tap. Ghost nodded once. He could work with that. Send it, Jake said. Jake, one more thing. Whatever happens tonight, I'm sorry. For everything, for Mom, for the years we lost, for what I became. If I could... Jake hung up. He stood there for a long moment, the phone heavy in his hand. The weight of what his brother had become pressing down on him like concrete. You okay? Ghost asked. No, what did you get? The tracker signal is live. Petrov's phone is moving east, toward the waterfront. Pier 9? Could be. Jake, if Derek's right about the warehouse being a trap, Then we don't hit the warehouse. We follow Petrov. Hammer had been listening from across the room. And if Derek's lying, if this is another layer of the trap, then we adapt. But the tracker is our best shot at finding Sarah alive. Jake checked his watch. 3:47 a.m. Sarah Sullivan had been in Petrov's hands for almost 10 hours. Every minute that passed pushed her closer to a deadline she wouldn't survive. His phone buzzed again, this time a text. From Derek. A GPS coordinate that refreshed every 30 seconds. Ghost, put that on the map. The blinking dot appeared on Ghost's screen, moving steadily east along Industrial Boulevard. Then it stopped. Where is that? Jake asked. Ghost zoomed in. An industrial complex, half a mile from Pier 9. Not the warehouse we had. Different building. Looks like a meat packing plant. Shut down 2 years ago. That's where she is. Or that's where they want us to think she is. One way to find out. By 4 a.m., Jake had reorganized the entire operation. The original plan to assault 1247 Harbor Road was dead. Instead, he split his forces into 3 groups. Ghost would lead a surveillance team to confirm Sarah's location at the meatpacking plant. Hammer would position the main assault force within striking distance. And Jake would take a small team to Pier 9, where Derek claimed the trafficking containers were being staged. You're splitting us up, Steele said. The Devil's Kin president had arrived an hour ahead of schedule. That's risky. Everything about tonight is risky. But if those containers are real, we can't ignore them. And if they're not, then I'll know Derek was lying, and I'll deal with that personally. Steele studied Jake's face. Whatever he saw there convinced him. My boys will ride with Hammer's team. We hit the plant the second Ghost confirms the target. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when that woman's home with her kid. At 4:30, Ghost's surveillance team reported in. Confirmed. 4 vehicles outside the meatpacking plant. Armed guards on the perimeter. At least 8, maybe 12. And Jake? Ghost's voice tightened. I can see her through a second-floor window. She's alive. Tied to a chair. There's a man with her. Tall, silver teeth. Petrov. Right where Derek said he'd be. What's her condition? She's conscious, but she's hurt bad. Face is swollen. I can see blood on her clothes. Jake, whatever he's been doing to her, it's been going on for hours. Jake felt the rage building. Clean, focused, dangerous. Hold position. We move in 45 minutes. 45 minutes? She might not have. We need the other clubs in position. If we go in undermanned, we all die, and so does she. 45 minutes. The longest 45 minutes of Jake Callahan's life. He used them to check on Emma. She was awake, sitting on the cot with her knees pulled to her chest. Captain the Bear pressed against her face. Can't sleep? Jake asked. I keep hearing Mama scream. Jake sat down beside her. He didn't have words for this. No adult should have to explain to a 5-year-old that the world contains men who torture women for information. No adult should have to sit with a child whose nightmares are made of real memories. Emma, I'm going to go get your mama now. Her eyes went wide. Right now? Right now. Megan's going to stay with you. And when you wake up in the morning, your mama's going to be here. You promise? There it was again, that word, promise. From a child who had learned that promises were the only currency that mattered. I promise. Jake? Yeah? Are you scared? He looked at this little girl, 5 years old, bruised, traumatized, still asking about his feelings because she cared about people, even when the world had given her every reason not to. Yeah, Emma, I'm scared. That's okay. She reached out and put her small hand on his scarred knuckles. Mama says brave is just scared, but doing it anyway. Jake held her hand for a moment, then he stood up. Get some sleep, sweetheart. Jake? Yeah? When you find Mama, tell her Captain kept our secret. Tell her I was brave. I'll tell her. He walked out of that room carrying the weight of a child's trust on his shoulders. It was heavier than anything he'd ever carried. and stronger. In the parking lot, 37 riders waited, engines cold, faces hard, ready. Jake stood before them. He didn't give a speech this time. There wasn't time. Sarah Sullivan is being held in an old meatpacking plant half a mile from Pier 9. Armed guards, at least 8. Petrov is with her personally. Ghost has eyes on the building. He paused. We also have intel that there are shipping containers at Pier 9 holding trafficking victims. Women and children scheduled for transport. He let that sink in. We hit both targets simultaneously. Hammer and Steele take the plant. Free Sarah. I take a team to the pier. Secure the containers. And Petrov? Hammer asked. Petrov is mine. Nobody argued. One more thing. Jake looked at the faces around him. Men from different clubs, different cities, different lives. All here because a 5-year-old girl had knocked on a door. The man who set up that warehouse as a trap is my brother, Detective Derek Callahan, Sacramento PD. He called me tonight and gave us Petrov's location. He claims he's trying to make things right. Jake's jaw tightened. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I can trust him. But I trust what I saw on that USB drive, and I trust what Ghost confirmed through that second-floor window. Sarah Sullivan is alive. She's in that building, and we are going to bring her home. He threw his leg over his bike. Ride. 37 engines roared to life at once. The sound split the night open like a crack of thunder. They rolled out of the parking lot in formation, headlights cutting through the rain that had started falling again. And Jake Callahan rode at the front with one thought burning in his skull. He had made a promise to a 5-year-old girl, and God help anyone who stood between him and keeping it. The convoy split at the river bridge. Hammer and Steele took 25 riders east toward the meatpacking plant. Jake led 12 men south toward Pier 9. Ghost's voice crackled through the radio. Reaper, I've got movement at the plant. 2 more vehicles just arrived. Could be reinforcements. How many total? Could be 15, maybe more. Hammer cut in. We can handle 15. Don't get cocky, Hammer. These aren't street kids. Petrov uses ex-military. So do we. Steele's boys did time in Afghanistan. They know how to clear a building. Just wait for my signal. We hit both targets at the same time, or we don't hit at all. Jake killed his headlight as they approached the port. 12 bikes rolled through the darkness like ghosts. The massive cargo cranes loomed overhead. Thousands of shipping containers stacked in rows, stretching into the dark. Somewhere in this maze, if Derek was telling the truth, there were women and children locked inside metal boxes, waiting to be shipped overseas, waiting to be sold. Jake's radio buzzed. Ghost again. Reaper, new development. Petrov just made a phone call from inside the plant. I intercepted it. What did he say? He told someone to accelerate the timeline at the pier. Move the cargo tonight instead of tomorrow. He used a container number, RVSK 4471, Section K. He knows we're coming. Or he's being cautious. Either way, if those containers exist, they're being loaded right now. Jake signaled his team to stop. He could hear it now, the low rumble of machinery, a forklift moving somewhere in the dark, voices calling to each other in a language he didn't understand. Ghost, tell Hammer they go in 3 minutes. We hit the pier at the same time. Copy that. Jake pulled his weapon, checked the magazine, looked at the men behind him. 12 riders. Some he'd known for years, some he'd met tonight. All of them ready to bleed for strangers they'd never met. We find those containers, Jake said quietly. We get those people out. Anyone who tries to stop us doesn't walk away. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from Megan. Emma says tell Mama she's waiting, and she says you're the bravest person she knows. Jake read it twice. Then he put the phone away. 3 minutes, he said into the radio. Copy, 3 minutes. Jake counted the seconds in his head, each one bringing him closer to a moment he could never take back. Each one carrying the weight of every promise he'd made, and every promise that had been broken for him when he was a boy with sad eyes, waiting for someone to come. No one came for him then, but tonight he was coming for them. The radio crackled one final time. "All teams in position, waiting on your word, Reaper." Jake Callahan closed his eyes, saw Emma's face, heard her voice. "Please help my mama." He opened his eyes. "Go." The word "go" hadn't finished leaving Jake's mouth before the night exploded. Hammer's team hit the meatpacking plant from 3 directions at once. The front gate buckled under the weight of a stolen pickup truck doing 60. Steele's boys breached the east wall with cutting charges that blew the locks clean off the loading bay doors. And Ghost, perched on a rooftop 200 yards out, started feeding real-time positions through the radio like a man narrating the end of the world. 2 hostiles at the main entrance, down. 3 more moving from the west corridor toward the 2nd floor. "Steele, they're coming your way." "I see them." "Reaper, you've got 4 guards at the pier gate, armed. They heard the explosion at the plant. They're on alert." Jake was already moving. 12 men at his back. Silent. Fast. The pier gate guards were looking the wrong direction, distracted by the fireball rising from the meatpacking plant half a mile away. By the time they turned around, it was over. Jake dropped the first one before the man could raise his weapon. The second went down a heartbeat later. The other 2 tried to run. They didn't get far. "Gate is clear," Jake said into the radio. "Moving to Section K." "Copy. Plant assault is underway. Heavy resistance on the 2nd floor. Petrov's men are dug in." "Sarah?" "Still in the north corner room. 3rd floor. Hammer's team is fighting their way up." Jake pushed deeper into the port. His team fanned out through the maze of shipping containers, moving fast through the narrow corridors between stacked metal boxes. Every shadow could be a threat. Every sound could be a gun being cocked. "Section K should be ahead," one of his men called out. "Row 12. Jake rounded the corner and stopped. 6 men with automatic weapons stood in a loose perimeter around a single shipping container. These weren't the half-trained thugs from the gate. They moved with military precision, tactical gear, night vision, headsets. "Ghost, I've got 6 hostiles, professional, heavily armed. They're guarding container RVSK 4471. "That's the one, Reaper. That's where the children are." Children, locked inside a metal box, guarded by men with automatic weapons. Jake felt something cold and absolute settle over him. The same feeling he'd had in Folsom when 3 men came at him with shanks, and he knew with perfect clarity that he was either going to kill all 3 or die on that floor. He didn't die then. He wasn't going to die now. "We take them fast," Jake whispered to his team. 3 directions, no warning shots. If they get a chance to radio for backup, we're done. If they get a chance to do anything to that container." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. "On my count, 3, 2. He never said 1. He just moved. The first guard went down before he heard Jake coming. The second turned and caught a round in the shoulder that spun him into the container wall. Jake's men hit from the flanks simultaneously. 4 seconds of controlled violence. 6 guards. 6 down. "Clear," Jake called. He was at the container doors before the echo of gunfire faded. Padlocked. Heavy chain. He shot the lock twice. The chain fell. "Hold on," he called through the metal. "We're here to help. You're safe now." He pulled the doors open, and what he saw inside stopped his heart. 12 children, the oldest maybe 10, the youngest couldn't have been more than 4, huddled together in the back of the container, thin, dirty, eyes that reflected his flashlight with the hollow look of human beings who had stopped believing anyone was coming. Nobody screamed, nobody cried. They just stared. A girl with tangled brown hair raised her hand. She had a bruise on her cheek that made Jake want to go back and shoot every one of those guards again. "I speak English," she said. Her voice was small and careful. "My name is Anna. Are you the police?" "No, sweetheart, I'm not police, but I'm going to get you out of here. The men said no one would find us. They said we belonged to them now. They were wrong, Anna. They were wrong about everything. And they're never going to touch any of you again. Jake's radio erupted. Reaper! Hammer's voice, breathing hard, gunfire in the background. Second floor is clear, moving to the third, but we've got a problem. Talk to me. Petrov knows we're here. He's barricaded in the north room with Sarah. He's got at least 4 men with him. And Jake, Hammer's voice dropped. He's on the phone, screaming at someone. I think he's calling for reinforcements from the port. The port, where Jake was standing, with 12 children who couldn't walk fast enough to outrun a bullet. How long before reinforcements arrive? Could be minutes, could be already on the way. Jake looked at the children, then at his men, then at the vast, dark labyrinth of shipping containers stretching in every direction. Get these kids out, Jake ordered his team. All of them, to the vehicles. Now. What about you? I'm going to the plant. Alone? Hammer needs help taking that 3rd floor. And Petrov is mine. I said that from the start. Jake, get the children out. That's an order. He didn't wait for a response. He was already running, back through the container rows, past the gate, onto his bike. The engine roared to life and he pushed it to a speed that should have killed him on the wet roads. Ghost's voice in his ear. Reaper, what are you doing? Coming to you. The plant's a war zone. Hammer's pinned on the stairwell to the 3rd floor. Steele took a hit. He's still fighting, but he's bleeding. How bad? Bad enough that he won't admit it. Jake pushed the bike harder. Petrov? Still barricaded. He's got Sarah in front of him, using her as a shield. Anyone who comes through that door, I heard you. Jake, if you go in there, then I go in there. He abandoned the bike at the plant's perimeter and went in through the loading dock that Steele's team had breached. The 1st floor was chaos. Syndicate soldiers zip-tied on the ground. 2 of Steele's riders standing guard with blood on their faces and fury in their eyes. Where's Steele? 2nd floor, took one in the arm, won't stop fighting. Jake took the stairs fast. 2nd floor was a mess. Bullet holes in every wall, shell casings rolling underfoot, the smell of cordite thick enough to taste. He found Hammer pressed against a wall at the base of the 3rd floor staircase. 2 of his men crouched behind him, all of them breathing hard. About time, Hammer said. Blood was running from a cut above his eye. 3rd floor hallway. Petrov's got the door reinforced. 4 men inside with him. Sarah's in there too. He's been screaming at her for the last 5 minutes, asking about the copies. He still doesn't know about the USB drive. Not yet, but if he figures out Emma had it, he won't, because this ends right now. How? We go through that door, Petrov puts a knife to Sarah's throat. We've seen what he does with knives. Jake leaned around the corner. The 3rd floor hallway was short. 1 door at the end, reinforced, no windows, 1 way in. Unless there wasn't. Ghost, building plans. Is there another access point to that north corner room? Typing, fast. Give me a second. More typing. The old refrigeration system. There are ventilation shafts that run through the ceiling of every room on the 3rd floor. They're narrow, really narrow, but they connect to an access panel on the roof. How narrow? Too narrow for Hammer, probably too narrow for you, but maybe I'll fit. Jake, you're 6'2", 220. Those shafts are... I said I'll fit. Hammer grabbed his arm. This is insane. You'll be crawling through a metal tube with no weapon, no backup, dropping into a room with 5 armed men. 4 armed men and a butcher with a knife. That's worse. Hammer, listen to me. Jake locked eyes with his sergeant-at-arms. That woman in there has a 5-year-old daughter who is sitting in our clubhouse right now, waiting for her mama to come home. I promised that little girl. I looked her in the eyes and I promised. Hammer stared at him, then stepped aside. You crazy son of a bitch. Go. The roof access was a rusted ladder on the building's exterior. Jake climbed it in the rain, his boots slipping on wet metal. At the top, he found the ventilation access panel Ghost had described. He pulled it open, looked inside. Ghost was right. It was narrow, dangerously narrow. Jake stripped off his leather cut, then his shirt. He needed every inch of clearance he could get. He kept his knife, left everything else behind. Then he squeezed into the shaft and started crawling. The metal groaned under his weight. Every movement echoed. If Petrov heard him, if anyone in that room looked up at the ceiling, this was over. He'd be trapped in a metal box with no way to fight back. He crawled forward, inch by inch, the shaft pressing against his shoulders, his breath loud in the confined space, sweat running into his eyes. Ghost's voice came through his earpiece, barely a whisper. 20 feet to the access panel above the target room. You're directly over the hallway now. Jake kept moving. His shoulders scraped metal on both sides. For one terrible moment, he thought he was stuck. The shaft was too tight. He couldn't go forward, couldn't go back. Then he thought about Emma, 5 years old, walking 3 miles through a storm, barefoot, because she trusted that someone would help. He exhaled every molecule of air in his lungs and forced himself forward. The metal scraped skin off both shoulders. He felt blood, warm and wet, but he didn't stop. 10 feet, Ghost whispered. Jake could hear voices below him now. Nikolai Petrov's accent, sharp, angry. Where are the copies, Mrs. Sullivan? I have been patient. I have been generous, but my patience has limits. And then Sarah's voice, broken, exhausted, but not beaten. I told you there are no copies. I gave everything to the FBI. You're lying. You gave it to the child. That's why you sent her to those bikers. That's why she had the stuffed animal. She's 5 years old. She doesn't know anything. Children know more than you think. Your daughter walked 3 miles to find help. That takes intelligence, planning. Someone taught her what to do. Someone told her where to go. And someone put evidence inside that bear. Jake froze. Petrov knew about Captain, knew about the USB drive. If those bikers have the drive, Petrov continued, then I need to know what's on it. Every file, every name, every piece of footage. And you're going to tell me, or I'm going to show you exactly how I earned my nickname. I don't know what's on it. I copied everything I could find, and I hid it. I didn't have time to organize it. Then you'd better start remembering, because in about 15 minutes, my reinforcements are going to hit that clubhouse where your daughter is sleeping. And if I don't call them off, Jake felt ice flood his veins. Reinforcements heading for the clubhouse, where Emma was, where Megan was, with most of the club's fighters here at the plant. He keyed his radio once. 2 clicks, the emergency signal. Ghost understood immediately. I heard. I'm calling Megan now. Jake couldn't wait, couldn't think about the clubhouse. He had to trust that Ghost would handle it. Right now, directly below him, Sarah Sullivan was running out of time. He reached the access panel, looked through the grate. Directly below, he could see the room. Sarah tied to a chair, face swollen, blood on her clothes. Petrov standing over her with a knife in his right hand. 4 guards, 2 by the door, 2 flanking Petrov, all armed, all focused on the doorway where they expected the attack to come from. Nobody was looking up. Jake positioned himself over the grate, tested its weight tolerance with careful pressure. The screws were old, rusted. They would give way the moment he committed his full weight. He would drop 8 feet into the center of the room. No weapon except his knife. 5 men between him and Sarah. He'd been in worse situations. No, he hadn't. He'd never been in a situation this bad in his entire life. He thought about Emma's voice. You have sad eyes. People with sad eyes always help. He thought about the promise he'd made, and then Jake Callahan let himself fall. The grate gave way with a shriek of tearing metal. 8 feet of freefall. He hit the ground in a crouch that sent shockwaves through both knees. The impact was brutal, but he was moving before anyone in the room could process what had happened. The closest guard was 3 feet away. Jake drove his knife into the man's gun hand, twisted it free, and slammed the butt of the weapon into his temple in one continuous motion. The second guard by the door got off one shot. It went wide, punching a hole in the ceiling where Jake had been 2 seconds ago. Jake put him down with a single round. The 2 guards flanking Petrov were faster, professional, military trained. One of them hit Jake with a shoulder tackle that drove him backward into the wall. Jake felt ribs crack. Pain exploded through his side. But pain was an old friend. He'd been living with it since he was 9 years old. He caught the guard's head in both hands and brought his knee up. Hard. The man dropped. The 4th guard had Jake dead to rights, weapon raised, barrel steady, point-blank range. The shot came from the doorway. Hammer had been waiting for his moment. The guard crumpled. That left Petrov. The man with silver teeth stood behind Sarah's chair, his knife at her throat, the same position he'd been in for hours. His eyes were wild now. The calm control was gone, replaced by the desperate rage of an animal cornered. "Don't move," Petrov hissed. "Nobody move or she dies." Jake stood 5 feet away, blood running from his shoulders where the ventilation shaft had torn his skin, ribs screaming with every breath, his knife in one hand, a guard's gun in the other. "It's over, Petrov. Your men at the port are down. Your guards are down. The children are free. The evidence is in federal hands. You've got nothing left." "I have her." Petrov pressed the blade harder. A thin line of red appeared on Sarah's neck. "That's enough." "No, it's not. I will kill her, Callahan. You know I will." "Yeah, I know you will." Jake's voice was steady, quiet, almost gentle. "Because that's all you know how to do. Hurt people who can't fight back. Threaten women. Terrorize children. You're a coward, Petrov. You've always been a coward." "Shut up. Emma told me about you, the 5-year-old girl you've been using as leverage. You know what she called you? The man with metal teeth. That's all you are to her. Not a name, not a title, just a monster with a shiny mouth." "I said shut up." "She's 5 years old and she outsmarted your entire operation. She hid the evidence. She found help. She led us straight to you. A kindergartner took down the Red Viper Syndicate." Petrov's hand was shaking. The knife wavered. His composure was cracking. That was what Jake needed. "You know the worst part?" Jake took one step forward. "You scared her. You hurt her mama. You made her walk through a storm alone. But she wasn't afraid of you. Not really. She was afraid she wouldn't find help in time. You were never the thing that scared her most." "Stop talking!" Petrov lunged, not at Sarah, at Jake. The knife came forward in a vicious arc aimed at Jake's throat. It was the mistake Jake had been waiting for. He sidestepped, caught Petrov's wrist, twisted it until the bones ground together and the knife clattered to the floor. Then he hit Petrov with everything he had. Everything from the last 48 hours. Every ounce of rage for Emma, for Sarah, for the women in those containers, for the children locked in metal boxes, for his mother who died when he was 9 while the whole world looked away. Petrov went down, hit the concrete, didn't get up. Jake stood over him, breathing hard, blood dripping from his torn shoulders, broken ribs grinding with every breath. "That's for Emma," he said. Then he turned to Sarah. She was conscious, barely. Her eyes were swollen, almost shut. Blood covered the lower half of her face. Her wrists were raw where the ropes had cut into her skin for hours. But she was alive. "Sarah!" Jake cut the ropes with his knife. She slumped forward. He caught her, held her up. "Emma," she whispered, the first word out of her mouth. Not help, not thank you. Her daughter's name. "Where's Emma?" "She's safe. She's at the clubhouse. Megan's with her." She walked to you. Sarah's voice cracked. Oh God, she actually walked to you. 3 miles, in the rain, barefoot. Jake held her steady. She knocked on our door and asked us to help her mama, and she never stopped believing we'd find you. Sarah made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. I told her if anything happened, walk until you find someone brave enough to help. She found us. She found you. Sarah gripped Jake's arm. Captain. She had Captain with her? Yeah, we found the drive. Everything's on it. Everything you collected. Sarah's whole body shook. I thought it was lost. I thought all of it was for nothing. It wasn't for nothing. Your evidence just took down an international trafficking syndicate. You saved lives, Sarah. A lot of them. Ghost burst through the door. Jake, the clubhouse. Jake's blood went cold. What happened? Megan called. 3 men showed up. Petrov's reinforcements. And? Ghost almost smiled. Almost. Megan put one down with a shotgun blast through the front door. The other 2 ran into Doc Whitfield and 2 prospects who were guarding the back entrance. It's over. They're zip-tied in the parking lot. Emma? Sleeping through the whole thing. Megan says she didn't wake up. Jake closed his eyes, let the relief wash through him like warm water. Reaper, Hammer's voice from the hallway. We need to move. I've called ambulances for Sarah and Steele, and the feds are on their way. Someone tipped off the FBI. That was me, Ghost said. Sent the evidence to Agent Laura Price 20 minutes ago. She's mobilizing a full tactical team. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. Good. Jake helped Sarah to her feet. She could barely stand, but she gripped his arm and refused to fall. Let's get you to your daughter. They made it down the stairs, through the wreckage of the 2nd floor, past Steele, who was sitting against a wall holding his bleeding arm, grinning like a man who just won the lottery. We did it? Steele asked. We did it. Good, because I'm pretty sure I'm about to pass out. Doc's on the way. Tell Doc to bring whiskey. Outside, the first ambulance was pulling up. Red and blue lights reflected off wet concrete. Jake loaded Sarah into the back. Paramedics swarmed. I need to see Emma, Sarah said, fighting the hands trying to lay her down. Take me to my daughter. We will, I promise. You keep saying that word. What word? Promise. Sarah looked at him. Through the blood and the swelling and the pain, something fierce burned in her eyes. Emma said you always keep your promises. She said you have sad eyes like hers, like mine. She said people with sad eyes always help. Jake couldn't speak. She was right, Sarah whispered. Thank you. The ambulance doors closed. Jake stood there watching it pull away. Rain still falling, blood still running down his arms. Ribs still broken. His phone buzzed. A text from Megan. Emma just woke up. She's asking for you. She says tell Mama that Captain kept their secret. And she says she drew you a picture. Jake read it twice. Then Ghost was beside him. FB, I just arrived. Agent Price wants to talk to you. She can wait. Jake, she can wait. He walked to his bike, threw his leg over. The engine caught on the first try. Where are you going? Ghost called. Jake didn't look back. Home. I promised a little girl I'd be there when she woke up. He rode through the rain toward the clubhouse, toward a 5-year-old girl who was waiting for him, toward a promise he intended to keep if it was the last thing he ever did. Behind him, the sirens multiplied. FBI, police, ambulances. The system finally showing up, hours too late, to clean up what 37 bikers had already finished. And somewhere in a federal transport van, Nikolai Petrov sat in chains with broken teeth and a broken jaw, learning the lesson that men like him never learned until it was too late. You don't threaten a child, not in front of a man with sad eyes and a promise to keep. Jake pulled into the clubhouse parking lot at 6:17 in the morning. His ribs were broken. His shoulders were torn raw. He'd been awake for over 30 hours, and every muscle in his body screamed for rest. None of that mattered, because the moment he walked through that door, a small blonde blur came flying at him like a missile. "You came back!" Emma hit him at full speed, wrapping her arms around his legs with a grip that could have bent steel. "You came back! You came back! You came back!" Jake lifted her up. The pain in his ribs was blinding. He didn't care. He held her against his chest and felt her heart beating fast as a hummingbird's. "I told you I would." "Is Mama okay? Did you find her?" "I found her. She's at the hospital. The doctors are taking care of her. She's going to be fine." "Promise?" That word again, the only currency that mattered. Promise. Emma pulled back and studied his face with those two old green eyes. She touched his cheek where a bruise was already forming. "You got hurt." "Just a little." "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore." Emma pressed her forehead against his. "I knew you'd keep your promise. I told Megan. I told her Jake always keeps his promises." Megan appeared from the back, a shotgun still propped against the wall behind her. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "She wouldn't go back to sleep. Kept saying you were coming back and she wanted to be awake when you got here. I heard you had some excitement." Megan let out a breath that carried the weight of everything she'd been holding. 3 of them came right at the front door. "I put a round through the wood, and the first one went down screaming. The other 2 found Doc in the prospects out back." "You okay?" "I'm okay. I'm really okay." Her eyes were bright, not from tears, from something fiercer. Nobody was getting past me to this little girl. Nobody. Emma turned in Jake's arms and looked at Megan with pure adoration. "Megan is a warrior. She shot the bad man right through the door. Boom!" Jake almost laughed. Almost. But the night wasn't done with him yet. His phone rang. Agent Laura Price. "Mr. Callahan, I'm at the meatpacking plant. I need you here for a statement." "I'm with the child. It can wait." "Actually, it can't. We have a situation." Jake's stomach tightened. "What kind of situation?" Nikolai Petrov. During transport to federal holding, the van was ambushed." The room went cold. Jake felt it in his bones before she said the next words. "He escaped." "That's not possible." "I watched him get loaded into that van. He was in chains. Professional hit squad, 4 vehicles, military precision. They killed 2 U.S. Marshals and disabled the transport. By the time backup arrived, Petrov was gone." Jake looked at Emma, who was drawing circles on his shoulder with her finger, humming softly to herself, completely unaware that the monster who had tortured her mother was free. "How long ago?" 40 minutes. We've got every available agent searching, but..." 40 minutes? You're telling me this man has been loose for 40 minutes and you're just now calling me? "We were assessing the situation." The situation is that a man who threatened to kill a 5-year-old girl is somewhere in this city, and you wasted 40 minutes assessing it. "Mr. Callahan." "No, listen to me, Agent Price. You had one job, transport one man to a cell, and you failed. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to protect this family the way I've been protecting them since your agency was too busy to answer the phone. And if Petrov comes anywhere near this clubhouse, near this child, near her mother, I will handle it myself. Permanently." He hung up. Megan read his face instantly. "What happened?" "Petrov's out." The color drained from Megan's face. She looked at Emma, still nestled against Jake's chest, still humming. "Oh God. Lock down everything. Again. Call anyone who's still standing. I want armed men on every entrance. Half our guys are still at the plant or the port, Steele's in the hospital, Hammer's giving statements to the feds. Then call them back, now." The next 3 days were hell. Jake didn't sleep more than 4 hours total. He turned the clubhouse into a fortress. Armed guards on every approach, cameras covering every angle, ghost monitoring police scanners, federal communications, and every underground channel he could tap. And nothing. Petrov had vanished, like he'd never existed. "He's not running," Jake said on the second night. He was staring at a map covered in red pins. Every possible sighting, every rumored safe house, all dead ends. "He could be in Mexico by now," Ghost offered. "Could be halfway across the world." "He's not running. I know men like him. He doesn't just want to survive. He wants revenge. He wants us to suffer." "Then why hasn't he made a move?" "Because he's patient. He's watching, waiting for the perfect moment." Sarah had been released from the hospital that morning. Her face was still swollen. She moved carefully, holding her cracked ribs. But she'd refused to stay another night. She needed to be with Emma. The reunion at the clubhouse had broken every man in the room. Emma climbed onto the couch beside her mother and didn't let go for 3 hours straight. She just held on, her face buried in Sarah's neck, her body shaking with silent sobs she'd been holding back for days. "I was brave, Mama," Emma whispered. "I was brave, like you told me." "I know, baby. I know you were. Captain kept our secret. I gave him to Jake and he found the thing you hid inside." Sarah looked at Jake over Emma's head. "The drive?" "Ghost sent copies to the FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security the night we found it. Your evidence triggered the biggest anti-trafficking investigation in California history." "How many?" 27 women rescued from the containers, 12 children, 17 arrests so far and counting." Sarah closed her eyes. Tears slipped through. "It wasn't for nothing. It was never for nothing. The man who did this to me, Petrov, is he?" Jake hesitated 1 second too long. Sarah read it immediately. "He's out, isn't he? We're going to find him. He'll come for us, you know that. He'll come for Emma. He'll have to come through me first. That's what I'm afraid of." Sarah reached across and gripped Jake's hand. "You've already done more than anyone should ever have to do. You've risked your life, your people, everything. I can't ask you to keep." "You're not asking, and I'm not stopping." Emma lifted her head from Sarah's neck. "Jake's not going anywhere, Mama. He promised." Sarah looked at her daughter, then at Jake. Something passed between the two adults, something neither of them was ready to name. On the third night, the phone call came. 3:14 in the morning. Jake was standing watch at the front window. "Unknown number," he answered. "Beautiful morning, isn't it, Mr. Callahan?" Petrov's voice was calm, conversational, like they were old friends catching up over coffee. "I can see you standing at that window. You look tired. Come out and face me." "Why would I, when I can simply wait? You can't protect them forever, Callahan. Eventually your guard will drop. Eventually you'll blink. And when you do, what do you want, Petrov? I want you to know something. I want you to understand what's coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, when you least expect it. When that little girl feels safe again, when her mother stops looking over her shoulder, that's when I'll come. You're a dead man, Petrov. You just don't know it yet. Perhaps, but dead men can still do terrible things before they fall." A pause. "Give my regards to Emma. Tell her the man with silver teeth says hello." The line went dead. Jake's hand was shaking. Not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like it might burn through his skin. "Trace it?" he asked Ghost. "Bounce through too many relays. Could be anywhere." But something in that call nagged at Jake. Something Petrov had said. "I can see you standing at that window." That wasn't a bluff. That was specific. Real time. "He can see me." "What?" "He said he can see me at the window. Right now. That means he's within line of sight of this building." Ghost pulled up a map. Line of sight to the front window. That narrows it to maybe 8 buildings within range. He also mentioned church spires once before. In the first call, what churches can you see from here? 4, maybe 5. But St. Andrew's has the tallest spire, visible from almost anywhere in this district. St. Andrew's, the church where Sarah's mother was buried, where Sarah had told Emma to go if anything ever happened, where Emma had drawn the man with silver teeth standing in her crayon pictures. He's been there, Jake said, or near there. He's using that location because he knows it matters to Sarah's family. How would he know that? Jake felt sick. Because he had 3 years of intelligence on Sarah before he took her. He knew everything, her routines, her family history, the places that meant something to her. Ghost's laptop pinged. Jake, intercepted transmission. 2 words. What? Tomorrow. Sunrise. Source? Less than half a mile from here. He'd been watching them the entire time. Jake called an emergency meeting. Every man still standing. 14 riders. It wasn't enough. It was what they had. Petrov's not going to storm the building. He's too smart for that. He's going to wait for us to make a mistake. Create an opening. Exploit it. So what do we do? Hammer asked. He had 17 stitches above his eye and hadn't complained once. We don't give him an opening. We go to him. We don't know where he is. We know he can see this building. We know he's within half a mile. We know he has an obsession with St. Andrew's Cathedral. Jake laid it out. I think he's been using the cathedral as his observation point. High ground, multiple sightlines. And it's personal for him. He wants to destroy Sarah in a place that matters to her family. That's a lot of assumptions. It's all I've got. And if you're wrong, then we're no worse off than we are now. Ghost raised his hand. I've got a problem with this plan. If we send our people to the cathedral, we leave the clubhouse exposed. What if that's exactly what Petrov wants? Draw us out, then hit the real target. The room went quiet, because Ghost was right. It was the oldest trick in warfare. Create a diversion, then attack the undefended position. Then I go alone, Jake said. Absolutely not. I go alone. Everyone else stays here, protects Sarah and Emma. If I'm right, I find Petrov and end this. If I'm wrong, at least they're safe. And if Petrov kills you, then you take care of them. All of you. That's not a request. Nobody spoke for a long moment. I'm going with you, Hammer said. No. I wasn't asking permission. Hammer, shut up, Reaper. You pulled me out of a gutter in Bakersfield 15 years ago. Gave me a cut and a purpose when I had nothing. You think I'm going to let you walk into a cathedral alone to face a man who eats people for breakfast? I'm going. End of discussion. Ghost stood up. Me too. Ghost, I need you here monitoring. I can monitor from a phone. I'm coming. Jake looked at the 3 men. His brothers. Not by blood, by something stronger. Fine. 3 of us. Everyone else stays. Rachel coordinates the defense here. Megan, Jake corrected himself. Megan coordinates. Right, Megan, sorry. Jake went to the safe room to check on Emma before he left. She was awake, sitting up in the cot with Captain pressed against her chest, like she'd been waiting for him. You're leaving again, she said. Not a question. I have to finish something. The man with silver teeth. Yeah. He called you tonight. I heard your voice get angry. Jake knelt beside her. Emma, I need you to stay here with your mama and Megan. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you stay inside, okay? That's what Mama told me before. Stay inside, don't come out. I know, and I know how hard that was, but this time is different. This time you're not alone. You've got Megan and Doc and a dozen men outside who would do anything to keep you safe. But who keeps you safe? The question hit Jake like a punch he didn't see coming. I'll be okay, sweetheart. You don't know that. Emma's eyes were clear, serious. You're scared. I can tell. Your hands are doing the thing. Jake looked down. His hands were clenching and unclenching, the way they always did before a fight. She'd noticed. Of course she had. This kid noticed everything. Yeah, he admitted. I'm scared. That's okay. Brave is just scared, but doing it anyway. Your mama's a smart lady. I know. Emma reached out and took his hand, held it until the clenching stopped. Jake? Yeah? When you come back, can we get pancakes? Mama said the hospital pancakes were terrible and she wants real ones. Jake felt something crack in his chest. This child, who had survived more horror in her 5 years than most people face in a lifetime, was asking about pancakes. Because that's what children should ask about. Pancakes, not monsters, not silver teeth, not whether the people they love are going to come home alive. We'll get pancakes, Jake said, the biggest stack you've ever seen. With chocolate chips? With chocolate chips. Promise? Promise. He kissed the top of her head, stood up, walked to the door. Jake, he turned. I love you. 3 words, from a 5-year-old girl he'd known for 4 days, and they hit him harder than any bullet, any blade, any fist ever had. I love you too, Emma. He walked out of that room and didn't look back, because if he looked back, he wouldn't leave. And if he didn't leave, Petrov would keep hunting them. Tomorrow, next week, next month, until the one time the guards weren't enough and the walls weren't thick enough, and the little girl with the stuffed bear paid the price for a monster's revenge. Jake Callahan was going to end this. Tonight. The cathedral loomed against the pre-dawn sky. Jake, Hammer, and Ghost approached on foot. No bikes, no noise, just 3 men moving through darkness. Ghost, anything on the scanner? Police are patrolling 6 blocks north. No activity near the cathedral. Thermal? I'm picking up a heat signature inside. Upper level. Could be anyone. Could be a homeless person. Or it could be a Ukrainian with silver teeth and a grudge. They split at the cemetery wall. Hammer went left toward the rear entrance. Ghost held position with his laptop and a rifle. Jake went straight through the front gate. The cemetery was silent. Rows of headstones stretched toward the cathedral's entrance. And there, exactly where Jake expected, was the grave of Sarah's mother. Fresh flowers, and scratched into the stone, words that hadn't been there before. I always finish what I start. Jake's blood pressure spiked. Petrov had been here. Recently, the flowers were fresh. His phone buzzed. Text from a blocked number. You came alone. How touching. How predictable. Jake typed back. I'm not alone, and neither are you. A pause. Then, smart man, but not smart enough. Look up. Jake looked toward the cathedral's bell tower. A shadow moved. Ghost, bell tower. He's in the bell tower. I see movement, can't get a clean shot. Too many stone pillars. Keep eyes on. I'm going in. Jake, wait. If he's up there, he has the high ground. He can see every approach. He can also see that I'm coming, and I want him to. Jake pushed through the cathedral's front doors. Inside was vast and dark. His footsteps echoed. Every instinct he developed over 42 years screamed that this was a trap, that Petrov was waiting, that the bell tower was a kill box. He climbed anyway. The spiral staircase wound upward in tight circles. Each step brought him closer. Each step could be his last. He kept his weapon up, his breathing controlled, his focus absolute. At the top of the stairs, a door, open, waiting for him. Jake stepped through. Petrov stood at the far end of the bell tower, silver teeth catching the first light of dawn creeping through the arched openings. He looked different, smaller. The broken jaw had swollen his face. The bruises from Jake's fists had turned purple and yellow. But his eyes were the same, cold, dead. The eyes of a man who had stopped being human a long time ago. Mr. Callahan, Petrov's voice was distorted by the broken jaw, but the accent was unmistakable. I expected you sooner. Sorry to keep you waiting. You brought friends. The big one is at the back door. The pale one is on the rooftop across the street with a rifle. Petrov smiled. It was grotesque. Half his teeth were broken, the silver caps bent and bloody. But you came up here alone, because this is between us. This was always between us. No, this was between me and Sarah Sullivan. You inserted yourself into a business transaction. You cost me millions of dollars, decades of infrastructure, and the loyalty of people I spent years cultivating. My heart bleeds. It will. Petrov held up his phone. One call, and a man sitting in a car 3 blocks from your clubhouse drives through the front door with enough explosives to level the building. Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. You're bluffing. Am I? Petrov tilted his head. You killed my men. You destroyed my operation. You humiliated me in front of people who do not forgive humiliation. I have nothing left, Mr. Callahan. Nothing except the satisfaction of taking everything from you before I go. Then make the call. Petrov blinked. What? Make the call. Go ahead, push the button. You think I won't? I think you're standing in a bell tower at dawn having a conversation with a man you claim to want dead. If you had a car bomb 3 blocks from my clubhouse, you would have detonated it already. You wouldn't waste it on leverage. Every nerve in his body demanding he pull it. End this. Permanently. Do it, Petrov hissed through broken teeth. Kill me. Prove you're the animal I know you are. Jake thought about Emma, about what she'd think if she knew he'd killed a man in cold blood, about what kind of father he'd be if he crossed that line. People with sad eyes always help other people. He lowered the gun. You're not worth the bullet. He pulled Petrov's arms behind his back and zip-tied his wrists. Then he keyed his radio. Ghost, call Agent Price. Tell her I've got a package for her in the bell tower of St. Andrew's Cathedral. And tell her if she loses him this time, I won't be this generous again. Copy that. Jake dragged Petrov down the spiral staircase. Every bump on every step made the man with silver teeth scream. Jake didn't mind the noise. At the bottom, Hammer was waiting. He looked at Petrov, looked at Jake, nodded once. It's done? It's done. FBI tactical teams swarmed the cathedral 20 minutes later. Agent Price personally oversaw Petrov's transfer this time. 4 armored vehicles, 12 agents, helicopter overhead. He mentioned a car bomb near the clubhouse, Jake told her. Probably a bluff, but we'll sweep the area. And Price? Yes? If he gets out again, don't bother calling me, because there won't be anything left to transport. Price held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Understood. Jake rode back to the clubhouse as the sun rose. The sky was turning gold and pink. His ribs were screaming. His wrist was swelling where Petrov's knife had nicked him. He was running on nothing but adrenaline and the memory of a little girl's voice. When he walked through the clubhouse door, Emma was standing right there, waiting, like she'd been counting the seconds. Pancakes? She asked. Jake laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in 4 days. Pancakes. Sarah appeared behind Emma, tears already falling. She didn't say anything. She just wrapped her arms around Jake and held on. Emma squeezed in between them, making it a 3-person knot that nobody wanted to untangle. Is it over? Sarah whispered. It's over. Really? Over? Jake thought about Petrov in chains, about the evidence in federal hands, about the 41 victims rescued, about the children who would never see the inside of a shipping container again. Really over. Emma looked up at both of them. Can we get chocolate chip pancakes now? You promised. Jake looked at Sarah. She looked at him. And for the first time since a 5-year-old girl knocked on his door 4 days ago, they both smiled. Yeah, sweetheart, Jake said. Let's go get pancakes. Viết lại phần hook mở đầu của kịch bản này cực mạnh. Mở đầu bằng một hành động hook cực mạnh, bộc lộ ngay hành động cảm xúc đỉnh. Ngay lập tức tiết lộ xung đột với tiêu đề, không dẫn dắt, không giới thiệu. Dài 90 đến 110 từ. Trích câu thoại lên đầu 10 tháng 2, 2/2. Orchestrated powerful dialogue-driven script, hook with immediate emotional conflict. The user wants me to rewrite the opening hook of the script to be extremely powerful. They wanted to start with a quote/dialogue line first. Immediately reveal emotional action and conflict matching the title. No introduction or lead-in. 90 to 110 words. Title: Please Help My Mama. A 5-year-old girl knocked. What the Hell's Angel did next, shocked. Let me write this in English. Powerful hook. Dialogue first. Done. Please help my mama. The bad men are hurting her. A 5-year-old girl, barefoot, bleeding, soaking wet, standing alone in a thunderstorm outside the Hells Angels clubhouse. 40 of the most dangerous men in Sacramento froze when they opened that door. Not because of the storm, because of her eyes. Green, huge, carrying a terror no child should ever know. She was clutching a one-eared stuffed bear like it was the last thing keeping her alive. And inside that bear was a secret that would blow apart the biggest human trafficking ring in California history. What these bikers did next was caught on a stranger's dash cam, went viral with 2 million views, and shocked the entire nation. Before we go any further, tell us in the comments where you're watching from so we can see how far this little girl's story has traveled. Subscribe now and stay until the very end, because the way this ends, nobody saw it coming. The pancakes came with extra chocolate chips. Emma ate 3.5 before she fell asleep in the booth, with syrup on her chin and Captain tucked under her arm. Sarah watched her daughter sleep and cried quietly into a napkin she thought nobody noticed. Jake noticed. He always noticed now. 6 months changed everything and nothing. The federal trial took over Sacramento like a storm that wouldn't pass. Every major network carried it. Every front page ran the same photograph. A 5-year-old girl walking barefoot through rain toward a biker clubhouse. The image that had started at 2 million views had crossed 50 million. People in 30 countries had shared it. Strangers wrote letters to the clubhouse addressed to the little girl who knocked. Emma didn't understand any of it. She understood pancakes. She understood that Mama was home. She understood that Jake came every morning and left every night, and that he always kept his promises. Nikolai Petrov sat in chains behind bulletproof glass. His silver teeth had been removed in federal custody. Without them, he looked smaller, ordinary, like a man you'd pass on the street without a second glance. That was the part that made Jake's stomach turn. Monsters weren't supposed to look ordinary. 47 counts. The prosecutor read each one. Human trafficking, kidnapping, assault, murder, conspiracy. The list went on for 11 minutes. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 47 times the word echoed through that courtroom. Emma was sitting on Sarah's lap when the verdict came. She tugged her mother's sleeve. Does this mean the bad man can't hurt us anymore? Sarah looked at Jake. He was sitting directly behind them, close enough to touch. Yes, baby, Sarah said. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Petrov turned as the guards led him away. His eyes found Jake across the courtroom. For one moment, pure hatred blazed in them. Then the door closed, and Nikolai Petrov was gone forever. Life in a federal supermax. No parole, no sunlight, no second chances. Agent Price found Jake outside the courthouse. 23 convictions total, 15 more awaiting trial, 41 victims rescued and reunited with families. It's the biggest anti-trafficking success in federal history, and it started with a USB drive hidden inside a stuffed bear by a nurse who was brave enough to fight back. It started with a 5-year-old girl who knocked on a door, Jake corrected. Price studied him for a moment. What about Derek? Jake's jaw tightened. His brother had cooperated fully, testified against everyone he'd worked with, helped identify 17 corrupt officials the feds never would have found otherwise. The prosecutor recommended a reduced sentence, 5 to 7 years instead of 20. His wife filed for divorce, Price said, but she's agreed to supervised visitation when he's released. His children will know what their father did, but they'll also know he tried to make it right. Does that matter? I think it has to. Price put her hand on Jake's arm. Family is complicated, Mr. Callahan. Yeah, it is. 2 weeks later, Sarah sat across from Jake in the clubhouse back room. Emma was asleep on the couch between them, Captain pressed against her face, feet tucked under Megan's jacket. I got offered a position, Sarah said. Victim Advocacy Organization, Washington, D.C., director of the entire national program. Jake felt something drop inside his chest. That's a big job. The biggest. I'd be helping hundreds of victims, building programs across the country, training counselors, changing policy. Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands were not. It's everything I've wanted since this started. A chance to make sure what happened to us doesn't happen to other families. You should take it. But Emma, Sarah's composure cracked. She's finally stable, Jake, sleeping through the night. She has friends at school. She has a therapist she trusts. She has you. Sarah's eyes filled. She has you and Megan and these rough, terrifying men who somehow became the safest people in her world. How do I take her away from that? Jake looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully. No nightmares tonight. No screaming. Just a little girl with a stuffed bear, dreaming about whatever 5-year-olds dream about when they finally feel safe. Have you asked her what she wants? She's 5. She doesn't know what she wants. You might be surprised. Sarah was quiet for a long time. She asked me something yesterday, something I didn't know how to answer. What? She asked if you were going to be her daddy. The air left Jake's lungs like he'd been hit. I told her you're our friend, our protector. She said that's not the same thing. She said daddies stay forever. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. She wants to know if you're going to stay. What did you tell her? I told her I didn't know, because I don't. Sarah turned to face him fully. Marcus, I see the way you look at her, the way she looks at you. There's something between you two that I can't explain. What are you really asking me, Sarah? I'm asking if you want to be part of her life. Officially, permanently. Jake stared at her. The advocacy organization has a chapter in Los Angeles, Sarah continued. I could work there instead of Washington, stay close, but they're offering me the director position in D.C. I could help hundreds instead of dozens, make real change. Tears spilled down her cheeks. How do I choose between my daughter's happiness and helping people who suffered like we did? You don't have to choose, Jake said. What do you mean? Go to Washington, take the director position, change the world. Sarah stared at him. Emma finishes the school year here, Jake said. The words came out steady. Sure, like he'd been thinking about this for longer than he realized. She stays connected to her friends, her therapist, everything that's helping her heal. Megan and I take care of her. You visit every weekend, every holiday, as often as you can. You do that? Full-time responsibility for a child? I made her a promise, Sarah. The night you were taken, I told her I'd take care of her if anything happened. This isn't what either of us imagined. But, Jake met her eyes. I love her. I didn't plan it, didn't expect it. But somewhere between that first night and now, that little girl became the most important person in my world. Sarah broke, completely, tears pouring down her face. Jake, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. Megan. Does Megan? It was her idea. Sarah's mouth fell open. She came to me 3 days ago, Jake said. Said she'd been watching Emma, thinking about the future, about what kind of life we could build. He almost smiled. Megan Hart has wanted to be a mother her entire life. She just never found someone worth sharing it with. The adoption took 4 months. Agent Price testified on their behalf. Sarah's advocacy organization provided character references. Steele rode down from Oakland to tell the judge about the man who'd risked everything for strangers he'd never met. The final hearing fell on Emma's 6th birthday. Judge Patricia Williams looked down from the bench. Emma, can you tell me one more time why you want Jake and Megan to be your parents? Emma stepped forward, small, serious, certain in a way that made every adult in that courtroom feel like a child. Because they found me when I was lost, she said. Because they saved my mama when the bad men took her. Because Jake promised he would keep me safe, and he always keeps his promises. She paused, gathered her thoughts the way she always did before saying something important. And because when I'm scared at night, Jake comes and holds my hand until I'm not scared anymore. That's what daddies do. The judge signed the papers. It is the ruling of this court that Emma Sullivan is hereby adopted by Jake Callahan and Megan Hart. The courtroom erupted. Iron Brotherhood members in clean shirts cheering. Steele's devil's kin stomping their boots. Ghost wiping his eyes and pretending he wasn't. Hammer blowing his nose so loud the judge banged her gavel. Emma threw herself into Jake's arms. I have a daddy now. A real daddy. Jake held her, tears streaming down his face, the tears he'd sworn he would never shed again. Yeah, sweetheart, you do. 1 year later, the clubhouse still served whiskey. The walls still displayed motorcycle memorabilia. But there was a play area in the corner now, toys and books, and a chalkboard covered in Emma's artwork. The Guardian Project had become official. A federally recognized organization helping endangered families escape dangerous situations. Jake worked with law enforcement instead of against them. Megan completed her counseling certification. Hammer and Ghost found purpose in protecting innocence instead of fighting territorial wars. Daddy! Emma came running with a paper in her hand. Look what I made for school! Jake caught her mid-sprint and swung her onto his hip. What have you got? We had to write about heroes. She thrust the paper at him. Careful first-grade handwriting on lined paper. My Hero by Emma Callahan. My hero is my daddy Jake. He has tattoos and a motorcycle and looks scary, but he is not scary. He is the bravest person I know. When I was 5, my mama got taken by bad men. I was scared and alone, so I walked in the rain to find help. I knocked on the door of the Hells Angels and my daddy found me. He promised he would bring my mama home, and he did. Daddy says heroes are just regular people who do the right thing when it's hard. That makes him the biggest hero ever. The end. Jake couldn't speak. Do you like it? Emma asked. My teacher said I should write about firefighters or policemen, but I said my daddy is better because he saved my life for real. I love it, Jake managed. It's perfect. Really? He pulled her close. But you know what, Emma? You're my hero too. Me? You walked 3 miles in a thunderstorm when you were 5 years old. You hid evidence inside your stuffed bear. You escaped from kidnappers by throwing Captain out a window. You knocked on a stranger's door and asked for help when you were more scared than you'd ever been in your life. He looked into his daughter's eyes. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Emma beamed. Mama Sarah says brave is just scared, but doing it anyway. That night after the video call with Sarah in Washington, after the bedtime story Emma asked for every single night, Jake stood in the hallway outside his daughter's room. Megan was beside him, her hand in his. The video hit 50 million views today, Megan said quietly. The anniversary, thousands of messages from people all over the world saying Emma's story gave them hope. Jake looked through the half-open door at Emma sleeping, Captain tucked under her arm, a rainbow drawing taped to the wall above her bed, photos of every person who loved her surrounding it like a frame. "She changed everything," he said. "She changed you." "Yeah," Jake pulled Megan close. "She did." Somewhere out there, other children were scared and alone. Other families were being torn apart. The world was still full of monsters, but it was also full of people who answered knocks on their doors. People who rode through storms. People who kept their promises. Jake Callahan had spent 42 years believing he was beyond saving. A 5-year-old girl with bleeding feet and a one-eared bear proved him wrong. Heroes aren't born. They're made by the choices they face, the promises they keep, and the people they choose to protect. Jake became a hero the moment he opened that door, but Emma had always been one.